2024 was an exciting year. 2024 was also an incredibly difficult year. Without getting into trauma dumping territory, this year has tested my patience and my fortitude in more ways than I can count. But between the awful moments that have come and gone are experiences I had this year that have and will continue to change my life. And instead of mourning all I felt I've lost this year, I'd rather celebrate the things that truly made me happy. Some of these things are video games, others are manga, TV shows, and some are just general experiences I had that made my life a little bit easier to live this year. I hope that between all of these silly little recommendations is something that you can take away and enjoy for yourself. Or I hope that if you have experienced these things, this comes as sort of an affirmation of how great they are. So let's get into this proper. With you today is your lovely host, Brendan, a professional writer and unprofessional media critic, ready to tell you the 10 things that he did this year that you might want to consider doing if you are in a similar place and need something cool to take your mind off how shitty life can be. Fuck, okay, scratch that title. SEO is gonna hate that. Let's just, I don't know, let's call it, the best experiences of 2024. Sure, okay, whatever, let's just start. And just for clarification's sake, this is not a list of media that came out necessarily in 2024. This is a list of experiences I had in 2024, mostly for me to look back on and say, "Oh yeah, that's when I did that thing. Yeah, sure, okay." Since most of you are probably here because of my video game review, let me get this one out of the way. Yakuza 0 is one of the best games I have ever played. I had a passing familiarity with the Yakuza or Like a Dragon series prior to picking up this entry again this year. I had played a few hours of this game and another few hours of Yakuza Kiwami, but I drifted off of these titles as my interest was absorbed by whatever other video games I had been playing at the time. However, this year, I decided it was time that I pick up a Yakuza game and really put my heart into it. I needed to know if this series was for me. And the answer was a resounding yes. For those not in the know, the Yakuza series follows the lives of several people associated with the Japanese mafia organization. Yakuza 0 is a prequel of sorts, reintroducing folks to two of the series' much-loved protagonists. Kazuma Kiryu, a seemingly no-nonsense tough guy who ends up getting into much nonsense, and Goro Majima, a fucking crazy dude. The player takes control of these two characters as they navigate the fictionalized Japanese cities of Kamurocho and Sotenbori, playing ridiculous minigames, completing even more ridiculous side quests, and stripping in public as to not stain their shirts with the blood of their enemies. In a way, Yakuza 0 is the video game equivalent of an absurd shonen manga. The JoJo's Bizarre Adventure comparisons were aplenty when I first started getting into it, but like JoJo's, Yakuza isn't all that it seems to be on the surface. Its characters have meaningful depth and experience a whole host of conflicts that could see them and their loved ones dead at any moment. Kiryu, recently expelled from the Yakuza for a murder he didn't commit, must clear his name while avoiding the wrath of his former family, all to save his father figure, a mafia boss currently in prison. Majima is more of a caged bird, trapped in Sotenbori under the Yakuza's watch and tasked with actions he cannot will himself to commit. All of this drama climaxes in unlikely friendships, betrayals, death, destruction, and a lot of half-naked fistfights. It's an 80s kung fu flick mixed with top-tier crime drama, wrapped tightly together with themes of friendship and loyalty that I could find in any issue of Shonen Jump. When the final fight was over, and as I watched the story wrap up in the final cutscene, I just found myself in tears. It was such an emotionally impactful narrative that I just was not expecting. Yakuza 0 was a wild ride, and I am so excited to start Kiwami again and see what it has to offer. Now for something a little different. I know that so far I've only really spoken about video games on this channel, and I mean that's for good reason. I love video games, they're my preferred media, and always have been. But this next entry isn't a video game. It's not even media. Many years ago, I used to be kind of okay at a little sport called badminton. The one where you hit a shuttle over a net with 2 to 4 players involved. I don't really know why, but as a young teen, I took to the sport and found myself really enjoying it. Fast forward to about 2 months ago. I hadn't played badminton in over 7 years. I didn't exercise much at all. I do stretches and bike a little bit, but sports are long past me. Or, at least, that was the case until I saw that there was intramural adult badminton at a local middle school, one night a week. Although my anxiety and lack of physical ability told me not to bother, I put those feelings behind me and went to a session. There, I quickly met some like-minded people who let me play with them. They were all pretty good, and surprisingly, I was also still pretty good. It was a fun time, made better by the people I played with. And it was so much fun, I decided to go the following week. The next session taught me something very important. I suck at badminton. The group I played with the week before was nowhere to be found, and instead I hopped in a game with 3 presumably middle-aged South Asian men, all very welcoming to the overweight white kid in their midst. I got my ass absolutely handed to me. I was getting played harder than Neil Peart plays the drums. I experienced crushing defeat after crushing defeat. But after every little mistake, whoever I was playing alongside was kind enough to give me tips on how to get better. Aim for just over the net or far back behind the opponent. Use my height and long arms to my advantage. Play the game that only a 6-foot-tall dude that can't run for more than 10 seconds can play. It was this mentorship, along with the laughs we shared in between, that color my reacquaintance with badminton. And after that session, I strived to become better. Even though I got beat down pretty hard, I walked away with a smile and the determination to improve. And almost nothing will beat an experience as great as that, in my opinion. I want to give a short but sweet shout out to my favorite manga I read this year, Kagura Baki. This manga is about a lonely dude who needs to collect magical swords stolen from when his dad was murdered using his own magical sword, a goldfish katana that slices everything and everyone in half. Very typical shonen shit. Except, holy Christ, this manga is constantly moving and moving and moving. Every chapter advances a story not only narratively, but thematically, driving its well-developed characters into moral dilemmas over and over again with no sign of stopping. Where does violence begin, and where will it end? Better yet, can that cycle ever truly be broken? I really don't want to give anything away on this one. Just know that if you decide to pick this up, you are in for a treat visually and story-wise. It's currently on its second big story arc, and it's only getting better and better as it continues, so you'll want to pick this one up soon if you're interested. Do you like Mario Kart? Do you like Sonic? Do you like the Sega Saturn? No? God damn it. Dr. Robotnik's Ring Racers is perhaps the most complex kart racer I've ever played. It's definitely the most beautiful kart racer I've played, and it might even be the best kart racer I've ever played. The coolest part is, this game is made by fans. Fans! There are over 200 tracks in this game, over 60 characters, mod support that adds even more tracks and more characters. There's an online community to play with, a fleshed out story mode with traditional Sonic challenge levels, reworked to be played with a cart, and above all, there is so much passion, a crazy amount of passion. This game is the video gamification of passion. From the tracks reminiscent of your favorite Sonic levels, to the inclusion of characters from across Sega's many franchises, they've yet to add Kiryu, I'm still waiting for Kiryu, to the absurd amount of mechanics, from using rings to gain a boost of speed, to a spin dash, to the many, many items that all have varying effects that are so much more original than those in other kart racers. Passion is just flowing through this project in ways I have rarely seen before. I'll be real, I don't care for Sonic as a franchise, and I'm also not very good at kart racers. But this game makes me put all of that aside so I can just have the time of my life playing Sonic it was meant to be played. On wheels, not on foot. This game is also free, by the way, so please go check it out if you can. It's absolutely worth your time, I promise. Okay, here's a real obvious one for you that I'm sure some of you have already seen. I love anime. I kind of love anime. I love good anime. It just sucks that a lot of anime is a total fucking trash heap. Thankfully, one of the best anime adaptations I've ever seen dropped this year, Dan Da Dan. I've been reading the manga weekly for a couple months now, and when the anime finally dropped, I had to see how it was done. The answer is fucking amazing. The animation is silky smooth, the character designs translate really well, and the goofiness of the manga is amped up to 11. I'm not really a fan of love stories, not for any other reason than I find them to be sort of cliched, but when I find a good love story, I love that love story. And Dan Da Dan balances the cutesy relationship between its main characters, Okarun and Ayase, with action-packed battles, thrilling moments, hilarious supernatural circumstances that have me constantly giggling to myself, and genuinely heartbreaking scenes. And the fact that the anime can capture all of that is just so amazing to see. Dan Da Dan is a really wild ride, and I'm excited to see more of it get adapted over time. Okay, so I have something to admit real quick. I haven't actually finished the Elden Ring DLC, but I can tell you, without having done so, that this is my favorite piece of FromSoft content we've gotten since the Dark Souls 3 DLC. The aesthetic alone drives these new areas into the stratosphere, with lush fields of yellow, blue, and red intermingled with several haunting castles containing some of the best bosses in FromSoft's history. Mesmer alone might be my favorite boss in the entire game, besides for maybe Horalu. His attacks are predictable in the best way possible. I know they're coming, and yet they slam me into the dirt every single time. The new Shadow Tree... The new tree system to improve your character outside of leveling is honestly just brilliant. I was really curious to see what FromSoft would do to even out the difficulty, especially since it didn't seem like it could get much harder after Elden Ring's final few bosses, but they certainly found a way, and a way that doesn't feel cheap, which I'm eternally thankful for. Also, some of these new weapons, just peak. Fantastic. The dry leaf arts alone are worth paying $50 for. If you know me, you know I love One Piece. I've been reading the manga weekly for a few years now, and I've trudged through the anime several times over. Nothing excites me more than seeing the scans posted for the new chapter every other Thursday. It's a story that's made me laugh out loud, drained my eyes of tears, and left me so shocked that I now have a permanent case of Eneru mouth. When Toei announced a 6-month hiatus for the One Piece anime, I was glad to see that the animators who have turned it into an absolute masterwork get, I hope anyway, a slight break from their no doubt awful production schedule. Little did I know that in the meantime, we would get the best One Piece side story that has ever been conceived, and that story is One Piece Fan Letter. Taking place during the return to Sabaody arc, while the Straw Hats reunite after the 2-year time skip, we follow an unnamed girl who admires Nami for her ability to thrive in a world dominated by big, muscly men. She looks up to her so much that she writes her a letter and plans to deliver it to her in person on the day the Straw Hats reunite, having cracked Luffy's secret code to his crewmates in the newspaper after the Paramount War 2 years ago. She's not the only character we follow, however, as we also turn to a Marine who is constantly belittled by his younger brother for not having achieved the same rank as him. The Marine's story, and that of other characters, parallel back to the Paramount War, where we see flashes of the main story occur while these side characters, like the Marine, are helpless to stop the fighting, and yet, 2 years later, they're still taking lessons away from the actions of Straw Hat Luffy. I don't want to spoil the whole story, but just know that this 20-minute animation, beautifully directed by Megami Ishitani, made me cry just as hard as I do whenever I watch the Marineford arc, and for characters I barely get to know at that. It is an absolute spectacle, with smooth animation and bright colors that just pop on the screen and make the experience a visual feast. When I heard this animation was coming out, I really didn't think much about it. I figured it'd kind of just be like a filler arc that we're used to, but now that I've watched it, it really has become one of my favorite pieces of One Piece alternate media, and I just cannot recommend it more. Even if you're not a fan of One Piece, just give this a shot, because who knows, it might make you one. If you didn't know, my day job, before very recently, was as an arts and entertainment reporter, although I also dabbled a lot in politics and social issues. Because of this, you can probably guess that I love the arts. And yeah, that's true, I really do. But there's one art form that I tend to enjoy more than most, and that's music. This year was the year that I really became invested in live music in particular. Due to some amazing circumstances, aka my partner getting a job at a local music venue, I have gotten to see some amazing acts, local bands that I would have never heard of otherwise, bands whose music I absolutely adore. This was also the year that I finally, after years of being a massive fan, got to see one of my favorite bands, Good Kid, perform at the Juno Awards. This was an absolute blast, and I still feel sort of embarrassed, in a good way, for shouting all of their lyrics back at them from where me and my friends were near the front of the stage. I may have also called out to the drummer and guitarist, screaming that I love them on the way out of the venue as I was getting an Uber and they were walking back to their hotel. That I definitely am a little embarrassed about in a slightly weirder way. I also got to see Danny Brown just a few months ago, which was another exciting concert. I saw Halifax band Customer Service for the first time, who blew me away and quickly became a favorite of mine. The amazing performance from Newfoundland-based singer-songwriter Valmy left me in tears, and after slightly obsessing over their latest release, I got to see Halifax rockers June Body at my local venue, and that just felt so special. So, if you're like me and love music, please be sure to get outside, touch some grass, and listen to your local bands and artists. It might be the best music you hear all year. It certainly was for me. Last, but certainly not least on my list, I played Dragon Quest V for the first time this year. It quickly became my favorite Dragon Quest game, to be honest, but I don't really want to talk about it too much here, because I want to make a whole ass video on how amazing this game is. But for now, just know this. Dragon Quest V beat out 11 as my favorite Dragon Quest game. Its narrative is a roller coaster. Its gameplay feels closely tied to classic Dragon Quest in scope, but its monster recruitment system gives it so much more customizability. The fact that there are 3 different versions, all beautiful in their own right, is just astounding to me. I will certainly be doing a video on this game in the future. It might not be right away, as I'm still working very hard on the Dark Souls 2 video, but just know that I played it this year, it's fucking amazing, and I am so excited to eventually talk about it. And, no, I haven't played the Dragon Quest 3 remake just yet. I'm holding off till the holidays so I can just throw myself right into it. And that is all I have to say. I hope this list is of interest to some of you, and I hope you folks look into some of the experiences I mentioned here. Like I said, the Dark Souls 2 video is well on its way, and I expect it to be finished hopefully sometime in January. Until then, happy holidays, and I'll see you next year. Thanks for watching.